Hello and welcome to Leadership in Neurodiversity, the new YouTube channel that focuses on leadership opportunities for neurodivergent individuals. This presentation will be made live on January 18th of 2024, and it's a preview of a presentation I will be making to Fordham University students on January 24th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Now here's some notes that will not be in the presentation. Leadership in Neurodiversity is my own project which will culminate in my dissertation defense at the Indiana Institute of Technology in what is expected to be late 2026 or early 2027. The opinions on these videos are my own and open to debate. I welcome discussion. I am planning on creating bi-weekly videos in the first quarter of 2024 and monthly thereafter unless circumstances change. And finally, this is very important, there'll be no attempts at monetization or SEO as I create these videos solely to improve my presentation skills. Any attempt to contact me by any means regarding any monetization, SEO, marketing, or any other attempt to sell a product or service will be deleted and blocked without consideration or response. Please don't waste your time or mine doing this. Thank you. So, for the presentation, I will start with these notes. Since I'm dealing with neurodivergent students, I will respect them if they have their cameras on or off at your preference. There's a lot to talk about. However, there are questions we go along. That's fine. I can stop and we're fine. I will respect that. I also want to tell you that your experiences are your own. You may disagree with me. I respect that. Everybody's life has been different. Everybody sees things differently. Far be it from me to tell you what is right or wrong. Next item is this is an untimed Zoom session. I paid for the link. It's a paid link. Don't worry about time limits. 40. We can go as long as we want. I've set aside an hour. If we get done early, that's fine. If we get done late, that's fine too. Please don't worry about time. Now, copies of these slides have been given to Mary Burns and Alexandra Colasacco of the Fordham University Office of Disability Services. This is to let them know what I'm presenting on. I'm letting you know now that although I'm talking about neurodiversity, a lot of what I'm going to say applies to any disabled student. As a matter of fact, it can apply to the general population. So don't worry about that. I will make sure to mention that where things can be applied, and pretty much most of what I'm going to say can be applied. So here's some connections I have to Fordham University. I never attended Fordham University. However, my late uncle, Edward Tipper Hughes, earned a BA in accounting from Fordham and was very connected to the university for the rest of his life. He was a very good friend to the university. Outstanding gentleman, sorely missed. In addition, I'm going to take a moment here to also dedicate this video to my late mother who passed away in August of last year. She didn't attend Fordham, but again, of course, I'm respectful to my mother, and I will honor her tonight, and my uncle. My father-in-law, who's in the audience, David Powell, earned a BA and MA in theology from Fordham. My wife, Mary Powell, earned an MSW and PhD in social work from Fordham. She is a psychoanalyst in private practice on Staten Island. She is very successful. And she's also an adjunct professor at the School of Social Service in social work. She teaches on Saturday afternoons. If you go into social work, if you decide to study social work and you have to take a class at 3:30, there's a good chance you'll have her as a professor. And probably most importantly, my wife and I were married at Fordham University Chapel at Rose Hill. Beautiful campus. I spent a lot of time there as a kid. I grew up in the Bronx, so there's a lot of good things about that university. I have a connection to it, even though I never attended, but the people I know that did all respect the university and love it. So this is a personal statement of mine. If autism is on a spectrum, then so are our talents. Now, what that means to me is that everybody talks about autism spectrum disorder. I'm autistic. I'm on the spectrum. Yet everybody thinks that our talents are limited to STEM, to technology, to repetitive tasks. I respectfully disagree with that. To me, I feel that I've met so many talented people on so many different levels through my career, through my experiences, especially on LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn and you type in look for people who are neurodivergent, that you will find they do everything. I mean, I know there are autistic attorneys. I know there are attorneys with ADHD. As a matter of fact, technically, you could say that there are attorneys that are narcissistic, and narcissistic personality disorder is considered part of neurodiversity. Technically, I respectfully disagree with that, by the way, but it's under the umbrella, so I have to respect it. Some terms for me: neurodiversity includes autism, ADHD, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, dyslexia, Tourette syndrome, Down syndrome is considered technically part of neurodiversity. Anything that where the mind thinks differently is considered neurodiversity. That includes the psychiatric disorders that, like narcissistic personality disorder, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder. And as a matter of fact, there's a study that just came out that shows a connection between borderline personality disorder and autism in women. So this is a very interesting area of research, I think, and it fascinates me. And ironically, my wife specializes in working with people with borderline personality disorder. So she may find out that some of the people she works with are autistic as well. So there you go. So here's my agenda. First, we're going to talk about an overview of my life on the autism spectrum and career before 2013. You'll understand what happens there. And then an overview of my career since 2013. And then my intended research for my PhD in global leadership. And then finally, I'll allow time for questions and answers. I'm going to allow, again, it's an unlimited session. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to share your experience if you feel comfortable. Again, a lot of what I'm going to talk about is applicable to all disabled people, and I feel that this is something that we can work together on. So my life on the spectrum. So when I was told I would never work as an adult in 1988 and received SSI benefits, supplemental security insurance benefits. They didn't know about autism back then, so they really didn't have anything to put me under. And autism was generally considered a nonverbal condition. And by the way, one thing I will say, I do not use the word diagnosis when describing our conditions, because I feel diagnosis implies that it's a disease, it's contagious, you can catch it if you don't do things, or you can catch it if you hang around a person too long. And I'm sorry, but you can't catch autism. You can't catch ADHD. You can't catch, any whatever disabilities you may have. But people refer to it as a diagnosis. I respectfully disagree. I call it a condition. Same way I live with type 2 diabetes, the same way I live with any number of things. But that's the way things work. Now, getting back to the story. In 1996, the internet started to become popular. I started playing around with Microsoft Office. I became proficient enough in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Access to become an administrative assistant for temp firms, and eventually passed the A+ exam that showed my ability to build and fix desktop computers. I am a technology geek. That is my specialized interest. If you want to go there, if you want to talk about that with autistic people, that's all good. I'm fine with that. I started out there as the administrative assistant for temp firms. Then I worked for a public relations firm as a computer maintenance installation person, and I helped with their Y2K protection. Now, Y2K was a thing in 1999. The computers were not set up to roll over to the year 2000, so we had to put in a special patch on every single computer on the planet to avoid quote-unquote crashes or the earth falling apart with some of the rumors, but this was very silly. And we had to patch every single computer in existence, and the firm and the place I was working for, I also patched things. I did the patches, and I did for that firm. We did it all in one weekend. It was just like going from one computer, going to the next one, and then going back to the first one, and taking the next step, and so forth, so on and so forth. So it was pretty easy, but still, this was a thing. Okay, I then got brought on as a temp by Citi, which was supposed to be a 3 to 4 week stint calculating how fast shipments were being delivered. They had just changed from DHL to UPS. I was kept on for 6.5 years, eventually becoming an information security officer and obtaining CISSP certification. The highlight, however, was training a London-based team on our software in 2002. I actually got to go to London for a week. I trained them on what we did. We eventually brought them on to handle the European clients and the European employees. I kept working with them as part of a team. Now, in 2003, my mother sent me a copy of an article she had seen in the New York Times Sunday magazine about Asperger's syndrome. She said she highlighted the parts she thought were relevant. There was more highlight than white space. I mean, this thing was heavily yellow. I had it checked out, and I was informed that I had this condition. So that's now part of autism spectrum disorder, if you don't know. It was something where it was called Asperger's syndrome. It was a high functioning form of autism, and it's now covered under autism spectrum disorder. So in 2006, my department was outsourced, therefore I was out of a job. So I had an opportunity to go back to college in 2010. So I returned to Hunter College and earned my BA in political science in 2012 while working in the Office of Student Services. I then attended Stony Brook University, where I earned a Master of Arts in political science in 2013. Now, I got out of Stony Brook and I was seeing a therapist, and the therapist made a call to a relatively new organization called Specialty Sterna, which is dedicated to the training and hiring of autistic adults. They were starting a project with an organization called Towers Watson White Plains, New York. Now, this was only the second neurodiversity hiring initiative that existed in the country as of that time. The first one was with SAP in Wilmington, Delaware. That was also done with Specialty Sterna. They arranged for the pilot project with Towers Watson. And then I completed the training and worked as a third-party contractor for the spring and summer of 2014. Now, the training was 12 weeks. The truth is they could have done it in 3, and since then they've knocked it down to 3. I was offered a position with Towers Watson in their marketing department. I was interviewed and hired in September 2014. Now, I stayed there for a while, but we'll get further into that. In April of 2015, the then CEO of Towers Watson gave a speech in the United Nations about the project and hiring autistic people. They got a lot of press. They got a lot of attention. The CEO speaking at the United Nations was a highlight for them. And then I was then approached by Inc.com about doing an interview about my experiences with the project. Literally the next day, I got contacted about it, and it was funny because at the day before, right after that speech, I was working with a coach, and she asked me, have you ever thought about giving your life story? And I said, sure. And it turns out the next day I get contact. Now, that was just coincidence. It was not intentional. Nobody knew that was going to happen. It was really surprising. I was very happy to do it. The interview is online. It's on the slides that I gave to Miss Burns and Miss Colasaco. If you ask for them, it will be on there. Okay, so in 2021, I wrote an article I self-published on LinkedIn about my hopes for the neurodiverse, and now the terms have changed. It's now neurodivergent. Neurodiverse was the term used at the time. Community. It was picked up by Canadian Business Journal and published on the internet, and the link to that article is also available on the slides. You can see it on the screen right now, but it will be on the slides that I sent to Ms. Burns and Ms. Colasaco. I then earned an MS in data analytics from the University of Maryland Global Campus in 2021. I had planned on earning a PhD in data science. However, circumstances were going to lead to changes that made things very different. One night in early 2022, I was thinking about where my opportunities to advance in my career would come from. Now, I then started thinking about where any autistic person's opportunities were going to come from, because it's a running thing. I saw online there were a lot of anecdotal stories about people being denied opportunities to advance, being denied opportunities to showcase what they can do. And then it hit me that I could look into PhD programs in leadership. I said, wait a second, let's look at this. And I applied to and was accepted to one in global leadership at the Indiana Institute of Technology, a private university in Fort Wayne, Indiana. However, all classes are online. Now, I haven't mentioned this yet, but the head of my program is here tonight. His name is Dr. Kevin Bottomley. I'd like to acknowledge him. And I think he will be very instrumental in working with me towards my goal. I'm about halfway through the program right now. I'm in terms of credits now. There's a qualifying paper and there's the dissertation, and on top of that, that's going to take a year and a half to 2 years. You figure the qualifying paper is going to be about 60 pages or so maybe 70 or 80, and then the dissertation is typically closer to 200. I'm already building the literature review. I'm already working towards doing that. I'm right now building the framework for the research project. I'm happy to say that's going well. I think the literature review is more based on hiring initiatives than it is on leadership, because there's really no research on leadership for neurodivergent people. And this is it's kind of an unfortunate thing. And I looked it up before I even applied to the program, and there was nothing. So it's amazing how that has gone. So I'm going to end up being one of the pioneers on that subject. So I ended up staying with Willis Towers Watson until April 2022. I went to a staffing firm and stayed there for 5 months. And then I was hired by a law firm, Stradley Ronan, as their CRM data steward in November 2022, and have been there ever since. Now, the job involves managing their CRM database, which is called Interaction. It's basically handling their data, making sure everything's up to date, assigning accounts, and making sure everything stays functioning. However, I expect the role will be expanding into data analytics and data standardization in 2024, as these are becoming key elements in any organization. Now, law firm marketing is a little bit different from retail marketing. In law firms, you focus on continuing goodwill with the clients you have. You don't try to build new clients like you do in retail marketing. Data analytics is something where it's important because you want to find out who's clicking through your emails. You want to find out who's connecting with social media, what they're looking at, when they look at it. You can get any type of metrics from that. The problem we've had is that it's hard to tell the story behind who's doing what. And from there, we need to figure out how to make things work. How to tell a story so attorneys can understand, yes, we're doing this. Yes, this is what they're seeing. Yes, this is our focus. This is what you can focus on to help build new business if you want. You can ask the client, listen, I saw you, I heard you, I noticed you were looking at our articles. I was advised you were looking at our articles. Tell me what you want to do. How can we help you focus on? Do you want to know more about what we're doing? You get the idea. Well, you get the idea. It's about that. Now, data standardization. This means throughout the firm, data is kept in a certain format. There are certain guidelines. There are certain rules about how data is kept and managed and worked on, and that's something that a data steward does anyway. So I think that's going to be a key focus. Okay, so I want to quickly talk about the 5 best companies, in my opinion, for neurodivergent employees right now. There are plenty of companies that do neurodiversity hiring initiatives. They basically offer training and employment to neurodivergent people. Some are simply for autistic people. Some are for more broadly based community. But based on my experiences, based on what I've seen, based on what I've read, these are the 5 best right now in the United States. And this is in no particular order. So it seems like if it looks like it's in an order, it's really not. I did this in the order I thought about it, and I apologize. So first is SAP. They're committed to having 1% of their workforce coming from the neurodivergent community. They were the first ones to do neurodiversity hiring initiative in the United States in 2013. I highly recommend these folks. They're based out of Wilmington, Delaware. They're very good at what they do. They are the original neurodiversity hiring initiative people. Number 2 is Deloitte, and they had one of the longest running neurodiversity hiring initiative programs, and the one most likely to come up in conversation. If you ask somebody to identify a company that does one, Deloitte's usually the one that comes up. It's funny, I was talking to one of my colleagues at the holiday party my firm holds, and I was down in Philadelphia, and I mentioned Deloitte. She used to work at Deloitte. Yeah, they I know about their initiative. They're really good, and yeah, that's pretty much the general opinion. Now, the third one is Bank of New York Mellon. This is via Especially Sterling USA. And they've recently done an initiative for entry-level jobs with a starting salary that was really close to mine. I mean, this was something where a couple of years ago, I probably would have applied, honestly. I mean, this was really close. And they're well worth looking into. They're a very good firm. Number 4 is EY, Ernst & Young, and they're like Deloitte. They have one of the longest-running neurodiversity hiring programs, but not as well known. They usually don't come up in the conversation as much, but they're very established. And the fifth one, and this is one I really was impressed with when I saw it, and I only found out about it recently. Wells Fargo. It has a 99% retention rate, a wide variety of jobs, and a strong commitment to their program. And they're committed to making sure such an initiative won't be necessary in the future because the people that are neurodivergent will be qualified for the jobs. And I really, really, really like that because I think that shows commitment to neurodiversity hiring based on talent. As we're going to see it in the upcoming slides, that's a key component to my research. Now, time to talk about my intended research. And my intended doctoral research has 3 components, 3 key questions. Number 1, what do corporate and organizational leaders really think about hiring neurodivergent people? And this is going to be the qualifying paper. Now, current research shows that most of the C-suite individuals, people in the C-suite, CEO, CIO, CFO, you get the idea, are less than 100% favorable to the hiring of neurodivergent people, with one study in the United Kingdom indicating that less than half of corporate leaders surveyed would even consider hiring from our community. Further research has shown that those who would hire would only do so for certain repetitive tasks at a low level. Now, I suspect you can apply that to the disabled community, that they're going to say, hey, we're going to keep these people in certain roles. We don't want them publicly being shown. And it's disturbed me when I saw it. The survey that was done in the United Kingdom came out last year, and it surprised me because the United Kingdom is so far ahead of the United States in terms of neurodiversity hiring. There's so many large companies making commitments to hiring. There's an organization called Neurodiversity in Business. They advocate for hiring in large companies throughout the United Kingdom. They want to make inroads in the United States. I'm more than happy to work with them if they ask me. I know the person who's in charge of that. They have a very strong presence on LinkedIn. I strongly advise you to follow them. On the other hand, there was a study where students who are in a program similar to one offered by Fordham indicated a separate survey that they have a wide variety of fields that they're interested in and are not worried about things such as writing or academics. Good to know that there's confidence in the community about that. Good to know that there's people that are willing to say, hey, listen, I'm not worried about my ability to write. I'm not worried about my grades. I'm not worried about that type of thing getting me a job. Well, what is it then? The question becomes: is it the fact you have a neurodivergent condition that causes you to miss out? And again, this can also be applied to disabled people in general. Do you think that your disability will get in the way of you getting hired? I hope not. I hope not. I really want people to succeed, regardless of where they are in life, regardless of what background they came from. And this is the qualifying paper. I want honest answers. I want to know, what do you really think? Because a lot of these companies that are doing neurodiversity hiring initiatives kind of don't really do a great job. They kind of give people jobs and they leave them out to dry, hang them out to dry basically, and then they leave them alone and they don't succeed, and it can get frustrating. I know that. So based on the information that I get, I would ask corporate and organizational leaders what they think is the best approach to hiring those in the neurodivergent community. So I've thought about an idea of connecting students in programs such as Fordham's with new recent higher graduate programs and organizations. For example, my former company, Willis Towers Watson, has such a program that introduces people who recently earned a degree to what the firm has to offer. By connecting them with programs such as the one at Fordham University, the tremendous talent on offer can be sourced and connected with the appropriate jobs. Same way with disabled people. I'd say everybody should get connected to a job. I think that this is a great way to do it. I'm surprised it hasn't been considered. I'm surprised it hasn't been looked into. And I'm going to, one of the things I will start to look into is making those things happen. I think that seriously, there's a whole large pool of talent that's being overlooked, and it's time to provide opportunities to make things happen. Now, number 2, I'm proposing a new way of hiring neurodivergent talent that can be applied to all new hires. Now, this is something that, to me, belongs up front, prominent, and is really changes the way that you hire people for jobs. And there's 4 points to the idea. Number A, hiring based on talent rather than condition. What that means is that you take a more holistic approach. You look at somebody's talent, you look at their education background, you see that they have a background in a field that maybe it's not good with the job that they apply to, but you have another job that says, hey, they're perfect for that. Let's make it happen. Let's try to work towards that. Because a lot of these neurodiversity hiring initiatives, the only reason you get hired in a lot of cases because you're neurodivergent. I'll tell you with my experience with Towers Watson, I had 2 people with bachelor's degrees in engineering in the program. One of those 2 had another bachelor's in psychology. Now, I respect don't get me wrong, I think it's great that you go out and get strong educations. But if you're going out and doing that, and you're in a program where you're basically cleaning data, I'm kind of asking myself, what are you doing here? And that's not a knock on them. I respect their talent. They're both very talented people. But to go out and have 2 bachelor's degrees, one's in engineering, one's psychology, those are 2 of the hardest majors out there. And I feel that it's very important to have people work in jobs that are suited to their education. Now, if they came back and say, I don't want to be an engineer, I don't want to go into psychology, this is fine, that's fine. I respect that. But it definitely raised my eyebrows when I saw that and when I heard that. You could also make the same claim about me, by the way. I had the master's in political science. What are you doing here? And the answer was, I've actually cleaned data. I've done at a much higher level. And it kind of helped me get into the position I was in, where I was picked up by the marketing department. Now, B is mentoring starting on day 1. This is something I take from my firm, where senior attorneys or the partners mentor the incoming fall associates, the ones who just graduated law school. They mentor them about the firm, the law, what to expect, how to advance in their careers, how to make their careers work. They take time out, and it's a very prominent thing. It's actually very prominent in all law firms, but it's something I borrowed heavily from my firm, and I acknowledge that Stradley Ronan is where I got it from. I think that if you go into a job, it's important for you to learn the ropes. It's important for you to understand what's out there for you, what to expect. You can have somebody to talk to. Listen, if you got a problem, you can talk about it. Later on, you can find out, hey, listen, you can get promoted. You can get into a new spot. This might be a good fit for you. Great ideas, I think, come from collaboration rather than from a single individual. Now, granted, my PhD came from my own idea, but that was just one thing. C, and this is very important, there must be a next level for those who seek it. If you're hired and you're in a job for 3, 4, 5 years, and you haven't been given any opportunity to expand the role, you haven't been given any opportunity for career development, you haven't been given any opportunity to advance, and you're getting positive evaluations every single time, you got to start asking yourself, I think, what am I doing here? If you want to stay in that job, great. However, this applies in my case. I'm a very ambitious individual. If I'm in a job for that long, I've learned I have to start asking questions and be prepared for the answers. If they're, whatever answers you may get, I'm, I may get. But we, as a community, I think sit and allow things to happen, and we need to be much more assertive on this. I think we need to get more involved. I think we need to change how we look at things. Again, that's a choice. You have the right to choose. If you like the job, you like what you're doing, cool, no problem. Now, D, and this is actually point 3 as well, is the creation of a leadership development program geared towards neurodivergent people. I'll go further than that. The program is for neurodivergent people, run by neurodivergent people. Now, I say leadership development program. We could do this on any basis. I'm fine with that. I think we could do this for a disabled community as a whole. That's great. One of the key elements I want to stress here is that I do not want corporate sponsorship for this, because the United States Supreme Court just pretty much eliminated affirmative action in universities. There's already threats towards these programs in corporations that are sponsored by companies because they quote unquote discriminate against other populations. Let's say there's a program for women or people of color, and then they get discriminated, and then people are starting to say they're being discriminated against, they're not getting access to these programs or opportunities to advance, and then the companies are starting to modify it. I suspect it's going to be it won't be that long before those programs get taken out as well, or told that they can't be run that way. If you run it as a private organization, that's fine. I want to emphasize I will not be seeking any monetization. I don't want any money for what I'm doing. I'm doing this to advance careers. And that's one of the key elements. I'm not here and again, I am fine with doing this as a program for disabled people. I'm fine with doing this as a program for neurodivergent people. My research, because I'm limited as to what I can do in order to speed up the process, honestly, is to work with neurodivergent people. And to be honest, be even more honest, it's likely going to be autistic people first, because that if you get into large numbers, the research can take too long. It can mess things up. It can cause problems for not only you, but your committee. You have a committee of 3 professors that are guiding you, and they want you to get done as quickly as possible. They want you to get your degree and move on. So let's start with my attitude is start with autistic people, advance to neurodivergent people. If there's enough demand for disabled people as a whole, let's do it. I'm happy to expand this. This is going beyond my PhD anyway. Now, this whole thing was based on what I call the educational vocational disconnect, which is where a neurodivergent person can have a solid educational background, is working in a low-level position simply because they're neurodivergent. And I gave you the examples before of 2 people with engineering degrees. I think that's kind of a real disconnect. I think that's something wrong with that idea. And I've encountered many people on LinkedIn with multiple advanced degrees who are working in jobs that don't match their education. I'm thinking, something funny going on here. Now, it's common to work in a field outside of what you got your degree in. Don't get me wrong. It's that happens very often. But this is something where it's not only are you working in something that's not related to your field, but you're working at a lower level than, let's say, a person with a master's would have. One of the challenges I put out is that if you and I've talked to a few people about this with similar backgrounds to mine. A neurotypical person with 2 master's degrees and is halfway through a PhD would not be in a low-level position. They would likely be in a senior position, a senior management position, and perhaps even an executive position. I think and I've met people whose credentials make me look like a rank amateur who are in low-level positions, and they are not being considered because they're neurodivergent. And that's a problem. That's a problem I want to change. Now, it's worth noting that many neurodivergent people also become self-employed, as it allows them to set their own hours and regulate the conditions. You encounter a lot of people who run their own businesses, do their own thing. That's great. And We're represented in virtually every field imaginable. I know of a couple of attorneys who are autistic, as I mentioned earlier, but stereotypes remain that we are best suited to STEM careers or repetitive tasks, or both. And guess what, folks? Not the case. So this new policy would be a win-win for organizations and neurodivergent talent alike because it shows that the organizations are committed to the hires. This can be applied to any new hire. It shows that they want to keep the employees. They likely will have higher employee retention rates, career advancement. They'll stay with the company much longer than if they just say, "Here's a job, go to it." This is a key element to me because I think people need to feel like they belong, they fit in. If you don't feel like you fit in, guess what you're going to be doing? You're going to be looking for another job, or you're going to become a very unhappy employee, and you're probably going to be looking for another job that way. So it's pretty interesting. So the third item, and this is going back to the fourth point of the program. So it's item number 3 is the creation of a leadership development program geared towards neurodivergent people, run by neurodivergent people. Again, this is something that would be privately run. This is not something that would have corporate sponsorship. And this is the foundation of my dissertation. I believe with the right supports, neurodivergent people can be leaders of corporations, organizations, without having to hide their conditions from day one, without having to mask. And it's a problem. I think it's something where you're capable of doing these things. You just need to be shown how to do it and how to go about it and how to make things happen. Now, I intend to look for volunteers on LinkedIn, perhaps Facebook, and ask them about their willingness to participate in this type of program. People who are working. This can be applied to self-employed or regular employed. I'm fine with that. Again, if this can be expanded to disabled people later on, happy to do it. I'll take that on as well. I think it's a good challenge. So the program will be built around several things. First, resilience theory. This is about how well people come back after overcome adversity. First studied by Norma Gomezi with children whose parents had passed away, but it's expanded to anyone who's faced adversity some time or another, some form or another. And our community has overcome many adversities, so it's a great choice. I think you can also say the same thing for disabled people. It's a safe thing to say. Item B, servant leadership, which was first considered by Robert Greenleaf in 1970, and it's built around serving those who follow you and combining their actions with yours to create the best possible scenario. And this focuses on actions rather than words. What we do is more important than what we say, but it's suitable for neurodivergent people as our communication style may be different from neurotypical leaders, but our actions show that we are leading. Now, I think it's important to understand that servant leadership is built around the idea of you work for the community. You don't speak out. You can. Of course, there have been plenty of eloquent servant leaders, but at the same time, we have to have something where we as a community can focus on what we do. If we show how we do it, then we can show we're more likely to show that we're capable of being leaders. So item C is true inclusion. Basically, everyone, regardless of who you are, where you've been, what your background is, don't really care. If you're part of my team, you're helping to make decisions, and your opinion means as much to me as anybody else's. You're as valuable a member of the team, bottom to top. Okay, everybody is valuable. That is important because too often people are disrespected for their background, their race, whatever. I don't like it. Everybody is included, period. So D is development of community. So our neurodivergent community, one voice speaking out might get somewhere. 10 people speaking out, more likely to get somewhere. 1,000 people speaking out, more likely to get somewhere. 100,000, you get the idea. So the community can support each other towards achieving their goals. This also allows people to network with one another while encouraging networking outside the program as well. I think if people outside the network see that we're building a very large network, then we can go forward from there. Item E, and this is the final item for this section, self-empowerment. There's the ability to speak for yourself. You need to be able to speak for yourself. You can do it in writing, you can do it verbally. Includes the creation of your own goals. You determine what your goals are, and you determine how to get there. You are in charge. You are the leader. You make decisions for yourself. Okay, I think that's an important thing. And the program's also going to be built around something called armor. This is my creation, I guess you could say. If you know the Reverend Jesse Jackson's "I Am Somebody," it kind of goes along with that. I think so. I think it's based on that. And it replaces masking with a symbol of power. It shows that we are powered. And armor means accepting our strengths, recognizing our talents, managing our lives and careers, organizing ourselves and our community, and realizing our goals. This is something where we are strong, we are capable, we can make this happen. This is very important. So in addition to all this, I've started a group on LinkedIn called Leadership in Neurodiversity, and I'm building a website with the domain leadershipinneurodiversity.com. These are used for expressing my ideas, listing research articles, discussing my research as it progresses. Basically, it's a sounding board for me, but I also want to share with the community. If I come up with anything that's of interest to the community, I will add that. Now, the research can't officially begin until I complete my classes, which will be in the summer of 2025. However, I can develop the concepts I mentioned in this presentation earlier and build my literature review, which is focused more on neurodiversity hiring rather than leadership and neurodiversity. There's really no research on leadership and neurodiversity, with one exception, and I mentioned it, and it's the next thing I'm going to mention. So there are currently 2 other researchers in PhD programs doing similar research. One is Nikita Williams. She's attending UNC Charlotte, working towards PhD in organizational leadership, and wrote a master's thesis on this subject. I highly recommend you get a hold of that. If you can't find it, I will be happy to give you a link to it. I think it's a really good, it was a really great thesis. It was really a masterpiece. While Zuzana Misko is attending Montclair State and working towards a PhD in clinical psychology. Similar research, a little bit different because I think she's working towards leaders who didn't reveal they were autistic until after they became leaders. So I think that it's a slightly different, but it works in the same way. Both are graduates of master's program at Montclair State University and are at different stages of the doctoral program. I can tell you that Ms. Williams is about the same point that I'm in. She signed on to she started her program about the same time, so we're about the same area. We are all connected on LinkedIn, where we know each other, we respect each other, we're aware of what each of us are trying to do, and it's a lot of good things going on. So I have contact information on my LinkedIn profile. I gave that's in the slides I gave to Ms. Burns and Mrs. Colasaco. I'm also active on Upnotch, a peer leadership group that mentors each other. It's a peer leadership group, and there's a neurodiversity community on that site. Highly recommend it. Good people. You'll learn from each other. You can adapt. You get ideas on how to become stronger people in our careers. I have a YouTube channel called Leadership in Neurodiversity. I just recorded a video for this channel where I practice on improving my presentations for what will eventually be my dissertation defense in 2026. Now, before I go any further, this is done in these videos are done in the dissertation defense style, which is where I read over PowerPoint slides. However, in today's case, as you see, that I am speaking live. The slides are in front of me. I felt like it's more engaging to speak to the audience as if to speak to the audience live. However, when I did the preview, I did so using reading over PowerPoint slides. It's called the dissertation defense approach. This is how virtually all dissertation defenses are done these days. And starting in March of 2024, I expect to have the leadershipneurodiversity.com website go live. I think this is going to be interesting. I think I already know the first item that's going up. I'm very excited for this. So thank you. I'm happy to answer questions you may have, and I know there will be some questions. I hope there'll be questions, but I think this is a good way to end the video. I think it's a little bit longer than the actual presentation is going to be because I mentioned I went off on a couple of tangents, but otherwise it's good to go. The next video in this series will be done right around February 1st. It's going to be about the 10-year anniversary of my starting with Towers Watson. I started officially on February 3rd, 2014. The video will be out around February 1st, and I discuss some things about my experiences there. So I want to thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe. I, again, will not accept any monetization, SEO, marketing. Don't waste your time contacting me. I'm open to debate. I'm open to discuss the actual video, and that's it. So again, thank you for watching. If you made it through the entire video, I thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you next time.